All right, so I think we're live, John. Hi,
I feel
everyone.
alive. You feel alive?
Me too. I feel super alive. Never felt more alive in my life. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the GoWP webinar today. How to speed up your WordPress website and crush Google Core's Web Vitals with John Phillips. Welcome, John. How are you? Other than alive.
Thank you, Jan. Doing great. Just hoping to not get blown away by the storms coming through the area right now. So if I just get, I don't know, sucked out of the room by a tornado, that's what happened to me. It's been nice knowing y'all. We're going to be okay.
Stay safe. Stay safe, John. Stay safe. We're going to hope that's not the case today. Hello to everyone in the chat. We over here on Crowdcast. If you're watching on the stream over on Facebook, I'll say hello to you in a little bit. But hello to you from the stream right now. And I just want to do a quick hello to everyone in the chat here on Crowdcast. There are a lot of you that are watching from South Carolina, Louisville, Kentucky, Prince Edward Island in Canada, Providence, Rhode Island, Vancouver, more people from Vancouver, a couple of people from Ohio. I see Cleveland, I see Columbus, I see Athens, I see Atlanta, I see India. It's just crazy. Colorado. All right. Ben Anderson from Sweden. I'm in Houston, also getting a little bit of sunshine now, but there was a little bit of storm earlier today, but I think spring is starting to spring more. So hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. So for everyone in the chat and everyone who's watching over on Facebook, really quick, I just want to say a couple of words about GoWP in case anyone watching isn't fully familiar with us. So at GoWP, we create happiness for digital agencies by matching them with outstanding talent to become more profitable. So whether you're looking to grow your team with a GoWP Pro, a developer, a copywriter, a designer, we got you covered. So if you're interested in outsourced services, so you can focus on growth, that's what we're doing. That's what we specialize in. And we want to make you more profitable. We want to help your agency become more profitable. We've also built the digital agency owners community. It's an active community of more than 1,900 agency owners, such as John today, where we hold regular group calls and webinars like this one, mastermind sessions, and much more. You can join that with our I'll drop a link in the chat. There should be a call to action button somewhere here. Let me know if you see it somewhere here in that little toggle bar. You can also ask questions, and keep the chat going, everyone. So if you have any questions about partnering with GoWP or how we can help your agency, feel free to reach out. And a few notes regarding the webinar. I'll be watching the chat. So if you have any questions, just throw them in there and I'll get them to John. So let's get to why we're here today. Hey Emily, I love John's shirt too. Yeah, clear cache. Yeah, that's definitely helpful, especially if you have a cookie problem. So let me tell you a little bit about John Phillips today, who's joining us today. So John runs Matchless Web Studio, a small web design agency in Clinton, Mississippi. He's the only employee, which makes him the all-time employee of the month for 7 years running. So that's a big deal. And he's been building, breaking, and fixing WordPress sites for a little bit over 7 years, and more fixing than breaking in the recent years. So thankfully, I'm glad to hear that. And in the last 2 years, he's developed a knack for website speed maintenance and performance. He also handles WordPress speed and core web vitals optimizations for a handful of other multi-six-figure per year businesses, websites, along with plenty of small to medium sized business websites. He enjoys teaching people, like he will today, how to do and what he does in WordPress is specializing in site speed and performance. So let's try to get all of the bumps and bruises out of the way. And the coolest thing about John's site speed journey is that he's stumbled and crashed and burned, and essentially he knows what not to do, what makes him quite strong in all of what he's teaching us today. So yes, let's start getting your WordPress website faster with no developer skills required. And there's going to be a huge bonus today. John is giving away so much today, which is really exciting. So other than teaching us all of this valuable content, there will be a 20% off coupon for the Holy Grail WordPress site course for all of our listeners, watchers, and chat people today. And anyone who buys the course using the GoWP coupon will also get a personalized screen share video. It will be a rundown of John going through your site, providing detailed suggestions, recommendations of what should be done and what could be done to improve one of your websites, whether it's your website, whether it's your personal brand or your clients. This is great for like proactiveness. I'm really excited about that one. He'll also be giving away a 1-hour coaching. It's going to be like a done for you site speed optimization, and 3 slots on the lifetime license for the EWWW image optimizer. So it does auto-scaling, WebP conversion on the fly, lazy loading, image and asset delivery by Bunny CDN, a limited bandwidth for life. And last but not least, I'll talk about the terms after the giveaway. All right. Now that we got all of that out of the way, John, do you want to get started today?
Yeah. Let's do it. I'm here for it. Thanks for having me. I'm really excited about this. This is a great, fun topic, and I'm just ready to dive in. So I'm going to go ahead and throw these slides up here, and maybe just to get the thing rolling, I wanted to mention, hey, where did the name for Holy Grail WP even come from? Well, I thought you'd never ask. I found myself, I think it was it was maybe June or so, 2020, pandemic in full stride, where I had just a little bit more time on my hands to tinker with websites, really started digging into speed and performance. And somebody comment in the chat, let me know I'm not the only one that has done this, but after, making some little tweaks and then running another page speed insights or GTmetrix test, and then making some other tweaks, and then running this test again, and seeing nothing happen seemingly for I don't know how many refreshes or reruns of tests that I've done. But finally, I found some little combination that delivered sub 1 second page load times worldwide, and I thought, oh my gosh, I've stumbled upon the Holy Grail. Like, this is amazing. And I found that same configuration, more or less, subtle tweaks here and there, has worked across, just about any website that I've touched since then. And so I've just found that I've got a knack for speeding up WordPress sites, and it's just a really fun thing to do. So anyway, that's where this all comes from. And the slide deck that you're seeing today, along with, I'll mention another handout or two, this will all be available for download after we get done here, but I'm going to go ahead and go full screen so that everybody has the whole thing here. And I'm going to do that thing that everyone always does. Like, can everybody see my screen? Can everybody, let's see, good page. How about that? Okay, big screen. All right, hopefully everyone sees this just fine. And we're going to dive on in. All right, so I think one of the very first things helpful to address when going into site speed optimizations is just making sure that we've got expectations in the right place whenever we go in here. The whole course that I ended up creating out of this process is in fact based on a blog post that I wrote, just kind of outlining at a high level some of what we're going over today. And the whole premise of that blog post was, hey, here's how I got my site to load in under 1 second worldwide. And that's just not going to be the case for everybody. Some sites have certain needs that are just not going to allow that to happen. But I do think that just about any site can be faster. But there is definitely a difference between having a site that is as fast as possible versus one that is fast enough for the job that you need to get done. So every optimization that we make, it's if you've ever played with any optimization plugins, such as if you're on site, you're on hosting, maybe it's the SG optimizer. If you played with WP Rocket or W3 Total Cache or WP Super Cache, Perf Matters, there's plenty of performance plugins out there, and you've probably found yourself at some point over optimizing things, maybe adjusting things, going a little bit too far that you end up maybe breaking some functionality on your site. And so optimization always comes at a cost, and it's just helpful to remember that it may not be worth it to tweak things beyond a certain point if you end up getting to a point where you no longer are able to use functionality that actually does need to be on a page. And so we just want to make sure that the site is as fast as we need it to be while still retaining all the functionality and styling that we need, because it's entirely possible to just push all the buttons, like you go in an elevator, like on Elf. Will Ferrell just kind of hits all the buttons. You could just turn everything on, and yeah, the site might be pretty quick, but it could be because nothing is loading and the page just snaps in and looks a mess. So that's not what we're after. But just wanted to get that out on the front side, that every site is not going to be able to load in 1 second or less, though largely dependent on your theme, how you're managing your images, how you're managing assets. It is possible for a lot of websites to load pretty darn quick, and we're going to look at how that is done. So I'm showing slides now, but I will do a screen share, maybe looking through. I'll look through one of my sites and then a clone of my site to show some differences between some configurations. So you will see some practical real world examples in here. So yeah, and just on that note of managing expectations, the fastest websites that you've ever come across basically are that fast because they're just not doing a whole lot. And that's not a knock. That is, that's from a performance standpoint, you basically want your pages doing as little as possible if you want them to load super quickly. So if you want to have a super, super fast site, you kind of have to get used to your site doing a little less, maybe not having quite so many fancy animations, or maybe there's certain, scrolling effects, or just little things that may add a nice little flair of design, something tasteful, but ultimately if it's hurting performance and you could maybe do a little better without it, it's just one of those things you have to consider. Is it worth me getting rid of this feature or this design element, what have you, for me to get the performance boost? And I think there's always a happy medium. There's always going to be a balance. So it's just a reality check. The fastest sites that you come across are generally doing the least. They're making the fewest requests and likely have the least amount of JavaScript running on them. So it's really helpful to keep in mind this concept of a performance budget. And there's a really good article. I linked to it in the resources in this presentation, but really great article on WP Rocket's blog that addresses this idea of a performance budget. And it's just like the term budget might suggest. It's like, hey, what can I afford? What can I, based on my needs, my requirements for this website, what exactly am I able to spend? Can I take the hit from needing to run some kind of ads on the site? Can I take the hit from needing to, for whatever reason, let's say I've got to run, multiple different tracking scripts. I'm running my Google Analytics, and I've got Hotjar, and I've got who knows what else. If there are certain things that are non-negotiables, like the client has to have them on the site, there may be some hits that you take that are just, hey, it's a calculated risk, but it's been accounted for and it's fine. It fits the budget. But in some cases, some things don't fit the budget. So it's just, again, helpful to know what your budget is, because again, you can either aim for your site being as fast as possible or it being fast enough. And as long as we're getting, sub, 3 second load, and I'm not even talking about fully loaded times. And we'll look at this in a waterfall chart in just a moment, but there's a phase of a web page loading called onload. And as long as your onload is pretty snappy, that's what actually gives a user the sense that a page has finished loading and it's, come in really quickly. So we just want to be sure, does our performance budget fit our goals? Because if we want to have all these different tracking scripts and we want to have all the fancy animations and we want to just do a whole lot on the front end of the website, that's going to really, require a hefty budget if you're not willing to do without some of those things. So, yeah, this is just the tip of the iceberg here. We're going to go high level on a couple of interesting concepts here next. And I like to break down site speed in general. There's many more concepts than this, but I like to break it down into maybe like 3 different silos, if you will. So first of all, like I said, most of the fastest websites you've ever come across, WordPress or not, they're more than likely making very few requests. So every file that is required by your website to load and render a page, it's going to have the HTML file, so just the structure of the page. It's going to have CSS styling that is responsible for different elements on the page. There may be JavaScript files that are responsible for different functionality, or again, scrolling effects and this and that. So the more requests that we make, again, that's just more that your site has to kind of dig through, churn through before a page can be finished loading. And JavaScript in particular tends to be one of the biggest bottlenecks to performance. If you've got a lot of JavaScript on your pages, especially if it's not being used, we'll look at how we can identify that shortly. But if you've got a lot of unused JavaScript and CSS for that matter, we can start looking at how we can disable some of the things, some of the plugins or third-party resources that may be responsible for some of those things. We can retain the functionality that we need, but maybe just work a little bit of, it feels like voodoo magic or something, I don't know, but you start getting into delaying JavaScript requests and only allowing bits of code to execute, after a page is done loading, or when a user starts to scroll the page. Fun things happen there. So yeah, we want to minimize our requests, manage your total number of requests. If you've got 70 plus requests on a page, probably a little much. We probably want to shave that down. If you're over 100 requests, probably, again, like let's find what we can thin out, because chances are there's a lot that can be tightened up there. And if you just want to know how many requests your site is making, and this is a per page thing, you don't just have like, oh, I have 50 requests on my site. No, it's per page. But if you were to take any page of your website right now and just run it through a waterfall test, GTmetrix is just a nice one that has a good waterfall that you can see and kind of make sense of things. The styling of it all is just kind of easy to read. You could just get an idea of, hey, how many requests are on my homepage? So if you guys want to knock that out while I'm talking, it will not hurt my feelings if you navigate away to another tab to do that. But beyond getting our total number of requests under control, we also want to make sure that we are optimizing the delivery of our assets. And your assets include everything from your images, your CSS, your JavaScript, just the things that make up those requests. Like those are the assets. So we want to make sure that we do have great hosting, and hopefully our hosting is offering some level of server-side caching. That's a big foundational piece that we want in place if we're going to have great performance, especially if you have a worldwide audience, if you have a global audience for whatever you do. You're not just maybe a local business with maybe brick and mortar, and you're trying to do stuff just in your geographical area. You may, in some cases, want to look into having a content delivery network, CDN, and optimizing assets like your JavaScript that is render blocking. Render blocking just meaning if your website is loading up several files, let's say we've got our HTML is the first thing. It's always the first request in a waterfall. And then you've got a couple of CSS files. And then let's just say there's a piece of JavaScript all of a sudden that's pretty high up in the waterfall. It's got high priority for loading. Well, now the page is going to have to, the browser is going to have to deal with that JavaScript, let it do its thing, let it execute before it can move on. And you may have more CSS again, and then there's another random JavaScript. So if we can defer, if we can push the JavaScript to the bottom of the page without breaking anything, then we can just have HTML, hit all that CSS, and then knock out the JavaScript at the very end so that those things are no longer render blocking. So if you've ever seen that recommendation in PageSpeed Insights, or if you run Lighthouse in your browser or something like that, then you may have seen that, eliminate render blocking requests. And then images. Images is a big thing. I firmly believe that getting your images under control will do a lot of the legwork in making your sites faster. That is one of the reasons that I'm giving away some of my slots on my lifetime unlimited license for the EWWW or EU Image Optimizer plugin today. It's just a great image handling plugin. I know that a lot of folks use Short Pixel, and that gets a lot of attention, but I have my reasons for liking EU just a little bit better. And then we can do some per page fine tuning. So kind of the third leg of the tripod, if you will, is doing that page by page, because you can't just make a set of optimizations and hope that they just cleanly apply globally across your entire site. There are different bits of functionality on different pages. Some plugins will load their assets. They will in-queue their assets on a page, whether they're needed or not. So you could have a form that is loading up, a form plugin loading up forms for a page where there actually are no forms. Or you could have WooCommerce is a big culprit for this, but let's say you have 0 WooCommerce elements on your homepage. You do have an e-commerce store, but let's say everything's on the shop page. WooCommerce is still going to be running on things like your blog posts and your homepage, your about page. If you don't have those elements active on your page, we can actually disable them. And that's a really great way to get rid of some requests, and we'll do that. I mentioned lazy loading here. I mean, that kind of falls into the optimizing delivery of assets. But again, sometimes you're lazy loading not just images, but even videos. If you have videos on a page, but they are below the fold, below the portion of the screen that you see right when you load a page, then we can even look at lazy loading things like our iframes, Google Maps, any kind of embed that uses an iframe, as well as there's even one cool performance plugin that will actually even let you lazy render HTML elements. So, hey, your footer of your website is not required for your, the first above the fold section of your page to load, to render. And so you can lazy render certain elements of the page just by specifying CSS IDs or classes. So that's really interesting. So before going further, I just want to knock out maybe a little bit of myth busting really quickly. And I'll just come out of full screen just really quickly because I want to look in the chat. Somebody maybe give me a guess really quickly. How many plugins do you think I'm running on my Site Speed course website? Like, what number of plugins do you think someone that is super interested, slightly maybe obsessed, could be the word, like how many plugins do you think I might be running? Does anyone want to chime in? If I don't see anyone chime in, then I can give an answer here in just a moment. But I see some numbers coming in, 6, 12, 8. So ballparking around the 12, 28. Somebody's a little braver. Thank you. Appreciate that. Higher number. That's good. Okay. Yeah. So just wanted to see 7.5. Very close. What if I told you it was 7 3/4, Jeremy? No, that's great. So thank you guys for chiming in. I will come back to the full screen view, but would it just totally surprise you / disgust you for me to tell you? So this is holygrailwp.com. Charlie asked in the chat. So on holygrailwp.com, the course website, there are about 50 plugins installed and active on that site. So I'm not saying that they are inactive, just kind of sitting in the plugins page, not active. They are in fact active. And let's see, I made the wrong thing full screen. Forgive me. Here we go. And this needs to bump back up. Still learning how to use this little app that's letting me do technologically challenged. Come on, thing. Work with me here. All right. Fit page. Jeez.
Hey, John.
Yes.
Going great. There's just a little bit of confusion over on the chat in terms. So if we could just take a couple of steps back and take it from, not take it from the top, but rewind a little bit to where you start talking about the plugins.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. So total number of plugins.
Yep.
Okay. So
awesome.
Yeah. So we commonly, and I'm just, instead of going back full screen, I'm just going to leave this here. I think everybody can see this well enough. Yeah. In terms of number of plugins, yes, I did say 50. It's a really interesting thing that not all plugins actually make requests. So if you run a waterfall test, and actually I left one up from earlier, And this is a clone of my, let's see, and I guess to share this, I need to actually switch my screen share settings. Hang on here. So how about this? I'm going to share just the whole window. That way I don't have to switch in between different tabs. Ignore all of the bajillion tabs and things, bookmarks that are open. So this is a clone of my course website on the domain matchweb.io. If we look in the waterfall test, so I've actually on this site disabled all of the optimizations that I've made. And if we look at the total number of requests, it makes about 50 requests with all these optimizations turned off, which isn't bad, honestly. But if I were to go back out to GT Metrics and run the live site, so the live site is on holygrailwp.com. If I run that site, you're going to see far fewer requests actually show up in the waterfall. And again, I mentioned that the fastest sites that you usually see are doing the least, or they're making the fewest requests, and having very few requests ends up giving you good load times. So how's that possible with 50 or so plugins installed? Well, not every plugin does stuff on the front end of your site. A lot of plugins may just have functionality that is on the back end of things. So we'll let that result come in, but just want to mention that it generally is, there's a grain of truth in this, in the saying of, oh, have as few plugins as possible. But it's just a little bit incomplete because we need some context. Not every plugin actually makes requests. All right, so looking at this waterfall, oh, did I undo them on this one too? Sorry, let me run it one more time. I this morning was working on both the live site and the staging clone where I had disabled all the optimizations, trying to remember if I had actually disabled things before I made the clone of the site or not. But anyway, there will be in the ballpark of like 12 requests total on the staging, or on the live site, about 12 requests on that homepage versus the 50 or so that you saw initially. So that just goes to say, and actually, how about I just in the back end here of the live site, if I just come over to plugins, just to show you, I'm not fibbing. There are 52 plugins that are active. One is inactive. So in the chat, anybody surprised? Anybody disgusted? Anybody just want to leave right now? Can't believe that somebody's okay with having that many plugins on a site? Yeah, so crazy, right? We need the context. So let's, yeah, we're going to look at some practical application. So I do have 2 checklists that, again, they'll be available for download at the end of this thing. But I do have just some general rule of thumb stuff that I like to keep in mind when I'm dealing with images, when I'm dealing with assets as well. So your JavaScript and CSS stuff as well. Let's come back over to this waterfall. Is this any different? No, see, that's still 45 requests. So I did something on the live site that I just don't recall right now. But normally when I've got everything enabled the way I need to have it, there would be just about 12 or so. So we'll actually look at that in the practical application stuff in a moment. We will turn back on all of the optimizations that were done on the demo site. So again, the clone of my live site with all the optimizations turned off. I'll just kind of walk you through bit by bit how enabling those things will, as we go, we'll retest GT metrics every now and then just so you can see requests going away and that kind of thing. But these checklists, I know you can't see them. It's very small, kind of makes you want to download them, right? I wish I could see them better. You could screenshot it, you can get them. But I can just move along here. And when I made my PDFs, I got a line through here. So I may need to clean those up. But anyway, I think we can still read it. Some real basic things to keep in mind with your performance plugins. So, and please do drop a comment in the chat. Let me know what performance plugins you are actually using. Or are there any that you've heard of, or any that you've got experience with? Just curious what people are actually using. Someone asked what the theme is. I'm using the Cadence theme on this site, and it uses a mixture of Cadence blocks and generate blocks. So W3 fastest cache, perf matters. Yes, yes, yes. Okay. Imagify, WP Rocket. Yeah, good stuff. Yeah, so across all these different plugins, you will find overlapping functionality between different plugins. WP Rocket and Perf Matters have a special place in my heart. I use both of them. There are some overlapping features, and you just want to make sure that you're not enabling one setting that you're also enabling like in another plugin. So you don't want to have CSS minification done in WP Rocket and also have it done in something like Auto Optimize or any other plugin. So just mentioning server caching from just a moment ago, and I showed plugins in the back end of the site. One of the plugins I use alongside WP Rocket is there's a helper plugin that disables WP Rocket's caching feature. So I actually don't use the caching functionality of any plugin. I just rely on my server caching and do not use page caching that comes with WP Rocket. And that is purely because when you run into issues that you need to troubleshoot, if you've got multiple layers of cache and you're not sure what's responsible for something maybe not showing up, then you've got to go and maybe clear things from multiple different places and disable this in all these places, and then re-enable it later. It's just not worth the hassle. A lot of times I usually just keep one layer of caching in place. So that's, again, why I do prefer having server cache be the focus. And there is going to be trial and error involved. There's going to be a lot of testing, retesting pages whenever you're trying to see what settings are going to work best for your individual website. You'll probably break things. Thank goodness, though, it's easy to put stuff back together, as I have found. But before you start making any tweaks to your site, it's always a great idea to have a backup, right? So make sure you back up before playing with anything that we might talk about today. So one of the very first things that I will recommend anybody do, if you're not already doing this to improve the performance of your website, there is virtually no good reason to not use Cloudflare. And show me in the chat, is anybody using Cloudflare for their name servers right now? So when you have a domain, so your name of your website, a lot of times the domain registrar will also be the place where you manage your domain records, your DNS records. And so you can use your DNS that is provided by your domain registrar, but honestly, they probably don't have the resources, the infrastructure, the network capabilities that Cloudflare does. If you're not familiar with Cloudflare, it is in a way a content delivery network, but it's much more than that. It offers a lot of performance benefits and security benefits if you're running your site on there, and the DNS is just way faster and better if you can get yourself on Cloudflare. So you can leave your domain registered where it is, but you can switch name servers to be run through Cloudflare, and that can instantly improve what's called your time to first byte, TTFB. That is a metric that let's look at a waterfall really quickly. Time to first byte. Oh, it's not on this screen, actually. Is it in the waterfall? I think it's represented by one of the lines here. Okay, so see it in one little box down here. Time to first byte here on GTmetrix, you see it here, 102 milliseconds. It's ideal to have your time to first byte be less than 300 milliseconds. If it can be less than 200, that's even awesomer. And anything under that is just killing it. So you want time to first byte low, because that literally means the very first bit, the first byte of information after you make a request to a server, someone looks up your website, the very first byte of information is able to be delivered back to the computer that has made the request. And that just means that the rest of your site can start just that much faster. The load can just start that much faster. So time to first byte, it gets better with Cloudflare. Plus you get some free security benefits with it. It's just a no-brainer in my opinion. Let's see, I'm gonna pull this back up so I see chat on top. Is the way that I'm sharing the slides here, is that okay for everybody? I know it's not full screen, but I hope everybody can still kind of see that all right. Just drop a comment if I need to pull it back full screen. Yeah, if you can build your site lean, and if you have great hosting and build your site lean, and when I say lean, ideally, just the way that I feel like the future of WordPress really is going towards these block-based themes. in lieu of page builders. Page builders are awesome at what they do. You get a ton of functionality and a ton of customization offered to you, but that does come at a cost. It can come with a good deal more, a greater number of total requests to load up a page that would, when compared to maybe a rough equivalent built with some kind of Gutenberg block-based builder, would just be able to accomplish it with far fewer requests. So building the site lean is going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot easier to get good scores, good performance out of your site than if you're trying to start out with a website that is, let's say you've got a Divi or Elementor, some other page builder site that's got a lot of other third-party extensions to work with that theme. And just between all of the different moving parts going on, it's going to gunk things up eventually with performance. Don't get me wrong. I've got many Divi sites, client sites that are loading under 1 second, and they do just fine. But again, it just takes a little bit of tweaking to know what you're working with and how to improve things. And last thing, just mentioning Divi, they did release their performance updates that came with version, I think it was 4.10 and so on, and plus, beyond that. And things have gotten a little bit better there, but there's still a lot of conflicts with third-party integrations. So again, if you've got a lot of different extensions, other plugins that try to work with Divi, some of them aren't compatible quite yet with some of the way that they're trying to improve their performance. So just something to keep in mind. Did I already say the last? Oh yeah, sorry, backing up. If your site is largely static, so just meaning you don't have a lot of dynamic content, not a lot of things that are just changing on the fly super frequently. Definitely not, something where you've got maybe an e-commerce store where things are randomly changing orders, like you've got a grid of products that change orders and this and that. You don't cache a lot of things in WooCommerce anyway, especially once you're dealing with someone adding something to a cart, or if they're a logged in user, you can't cache some of that stuff anyway. But it's just worth mentioning, there's a really great free, there's a blog post, again, it's linked in the resources on this thing at the end of these slides. There's a blog post on the WP Speed Matters blog, and it goes into how you can use what's called Cloudflare's page rules to cache your site worldwide on their edge network. So out of the, it's probably 200 plus different data centers they have around the world, places of presence. Let's see, got one comment saying they cannot see the slides. Anyone else not seeing the slides? I want to make sure that we can see this. I've got the chat window over on the side, but if you're not seeing all that, then I need to make sure that I'm sharing this again. I'll switch that up really quick. Sorry about that.
Hey, yes, I believe we were seeing the wrong screen.
Let's see. How are we now?
Excellent. Thanks.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. Yeah. So this may be the slide where I went wrong, but yeah. Cloudflare page rules. Great, easy win for making your site load quickly worldwide, and we will get there. We will get to that article shortly. Everybody see it now? Yeah. Okay. Cool. All right. So let's now get into some of the real practical hands-on stuff. So we'll look at how do you get stuff out of your waterfall? How can you optimize the delivery of some assets, and then some per page fine tuning. We'll largely do that with the Perf Matters plugin. So the Holy Grail WordPress Site Speed course is largely leans on using WP Rocket and Perf Matters. Those are both premium plugins that you do have to use if you're going to follow my recommendations exactly. There are other comparable plugins. Flying Press is another that you could maybe use in place of WP Rocket for some of these things. And I do plan on adding some Flying Press video lessons to the course. But yeah, for the purposes of what we're about to look at, it'll be WP Rocket, Perf Matters for the most part. A lot of the tools that I use, I will mention, if you're not in the spot yet where you want to spend any money on performance products, performance plugins, again, Cloudflare is free. And so we do want to make use of Cloudflare, at least for DNS. And then if your site is static, using page rules to cache your site worldwide, because that is killer for performance. We'll talk about a service in a bit as well. Cloudflare's APO is automatic platform optimization. And it's basically they call it a simple on switch for improving WordPress performance. And so it effectively does some of the same stuff as page rules for worldwide caching, but then just a little extra. But that is I think it's $5 per month. But regular Cloudflare is free. Flying Scripts, though. Flying Scripts is a plugin that is free that accomplishes some of the JavaScript delay functionality that we'll talk about in a bit with WP Rocket. So if you want to play with some of the things that we're going to talk about with JavaScript, look into this free plugin by WP Speed Matters, Flying Scripts. We will use that one shortly. All right, so I'm going to change up my screen share again. So let me make sure I'm showing the right stuff. All right. How are we doing on time? I like talking a lot, so you guys, I could easily talk too long, so feel free to stop me at any point. All right, you guys can see my Chrome. All right, let us come back to our waterfall, and we're going to look at some practical stuff, let's say starting with WP Rocket. All right, so I'm on the domain, matchweb.io, and just to make sure that we're looking at the most current version of that. Again, we have roughly 50 requests. If you can see that in the bottom left here, 50 requests that are made on that page, and none of the optimizations are actually turned on with things like WP Rocket and whatnot. So I'm actually going to go ahead and head back to the WP Rocket settings panel and talk about some things we can work on. I wanted to highlight, so defer JavaScript. Let's see, let me actually get there in the WP Rocket settings. I don't use WP Rocket's cache functionality, so I just leave those settings totally alone. But if we come into our file optimization, I'm actually going to start with the JavaScript stuff. If you're not familiar with minification, this could largely be an obsolete performance tweak at this point, because a lot of Brian Jackson mentioned this recently in a separate kind of webinar going over his plugin Perf Matters, that a lot of theme developers, plugin developers are minifying their files in their plugins already. And so it's not going to hurt anything if you turn it on and your files are already minified, but I don't know, maybe it could. It's not going to hurt anything in this case because I've turned it on and not had any issue. But minifying a file just removes all the white spaces. Like literally, if there's a space in between characters in a file, it will just get rid of all that white space and just kind of shrink up the code so that you are, it's just faster for the plugin to read. I was going to grab if I grab one of these URLs and just show you, for instance, all right, this is some minified JavaScript, looks like, although it does not have .min.js up here. But you just see there's a lot of code scrunched up all together. If you were looking at a CSS file, there may be a better example here. How about lazy sizes from image optimizer? This does say .min.js, but you see in the extension, it indicates, hey, this file has already been minimized, and I don't have minification even turned on yet. So it's one of those things that can potentially be helpful, but again, it may not be useful as much these days. That's really all there is to say about that. Not a great idea to combine files, whether you're talking combining CSS or JavaScript, because it can result in you just having a lot of unused JavaScript and CSS on your pages. Because rather than having how many requests did we have? 50 or so with all this CSS, 16 of them are CSS files or requests. Combining would basically put all those into one request and just add up the total weight here. So instead of having all these smaller files, you see the weights of just how big these files are here, 5.13 kilobytes and so on. You would just have one file that was more like this 64.4 kilobyte. And if you've got something in that combined file that is not actually used on a page, then it's just going to result in unused CSS. So minification, we can turn that on. We're never going to turn on combined stuff, at least in the way I go about things. Load JavaScript deferred. We talked about render blocking resources a bit ago, and it does just push all of your JavaScript to the bottom of your waterfall. So if I unfilter this thing, we're looking at all resources. Again, I did not necessarily test this ahead of time, but just going to look at the waterfall. And I'm just looking at these little file extensions. I see CSS, 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 here's the first bit of JavaScript. Then there's some images, then there's JavaScript, and there's some more images, and then other various scripts. But when we turn on deferral, what should happen is that any JavaScript that is happening with that is being loaded with higher priority, so it's higher up in the waterfall, should be pushed to the bottom so that those scripts are no longer render blocking or otherwise slowing on the page. So just going to, let's see, we'll get off of, that's the live site. We're going to turn on our defer JavaScript. WP Rocket also is great about documenting exclusions that you may need to have. This is where you would indicate, like you would take the file name like out of your waterfall if you knew that a particular script, or if it was a bit of CSS that you were trying to put in one of these higher up settings. If you're minifying and you needed to exclude a certain file out of your minification, you just enter them one line by one line in here. I had these in here earlier, so I just already know that these were in place, but these were some JavaScript deferrals that needed to be excluded to make some things work on this page. And honestly, figuring out what needs to be excluded from JavaScript deferral, and especially the JavaScript delay settings in WP Rocket or any other plugin that does that delay functionality, going to make a big difference. It sometimes is the determining factor between your page working at all or not. So just going to rerun that test now that the deferral setting has been turned on. And if I need to, I may need to actually clear server cache as well. So I will just hit this little purge cache up here and let that clear out, just in case we need to rerun this test. Excuse me. So now looking in the waterfall, unless I need to be sure I've cleared cache, we should start having more of the, and it's not taken effect just yet. So I probably need to clear cache again and run this one more time. But you would see any of the JavaScript files push, closer to the bottom of the waterfall here. Okay, so that's what JavaScript deferral does. Coming back to these JavaScript settings, and then delay JavaScript execution. All right, so this is one of the most recent features of WP Rocket that also has probably broken the most of you guys' sites. If you use WP Rocket, just curious in the chat if you want to let me know. Hey, has this setting in WP Rocket given you a lot of grief? Because it sure has caused some noise, especially in the Facebook group. But delay JavaScript execution, if you're not familiar with what that is, allow me to show you. All right, and we've got slides on this later, so if you don't totally get it right now, may do better seeing it later. But I may need to adjust my screen share settings one more time. Hopefully I get everybody seeing what they need to see. I wonder, will it let me select multiple tabs? No, multiple windows. All right, so I'm just gonna try to share my window because I need to be able to show two separate screens. All right, so if you're not familiar with Chrome DevTools, if you right click on a page and click inspect, or whatever browser you use, if you use Firefox or something else, all these browsers have DevTools. But you can come into this thing and go to the network tab. It says network at the top. And I want you to watch what happens. I'm going to hit Command R or you could also hit the record button here. But this is going to load the page, and it happens quickly, but you'll see all the different requests, just like we see the requests show up in the waterfall here on something like GTmetrix. You have that as well in your browser. So we're going to network and going to reload the page. You see the HTML document come in first, and then whoop, here's all these different requests that come in after the fact. Now, you may even notice if I continue scrolling down the page, if you see the number here says 81 requests so far. Now, this is a short page, so that might not have been a good example. But if you have a longer page and you continue scrolling down the page, you'll find some other requests pop in, especially if you've got images that are being lazy loaded. But you can basically watch everything load in the order that it loads whenever we're looking at the network tab. Yes.
Hey, sorry, we're not seeing the correct inspect screen.
Again, so I told it to just share my entire Okay, sorry. I thought I clicked entire
No
screen.
worries.
I did not click entire screen. The narrator comes on. He did not click the entire. Yes. Okay. So sorry about that, guys. Let's go one more again. So right click, inspect element. I'm going to get to the top of this page again.
We are in your desktop now.
You cannot see my browser? What? Crowdcast? I do not understand you.
Crowdcast it's starting to become a little feisty today with the screen sharing.
Okay, let's try. I need to be able to really show two screens at once, but all right, since I can't. All right, so right now you can just see the dev tools, right? So I right clicked the page. I have scrolled to the top of the page and right clicked it. All right, if we go to network at the top, can you guys see this now? See all these separate lines, all these different requests? I'll clear that out. So when you hit your network tab and reload the page, I did Command R, then it's loading in all the different requests, just like we saw requests in the GT metrics waterfall. You see all the requests for the page here, okay? So all of the 80, you see 80 in the bottom left corner here, 80 requests, and then maybe if I scroll down the page a little farther, some other requests might pop in. There's maybe lazy loaded images, things that are just kind of coming in as I interact with the page and go further down. That is good for performance. But we can further delay some of these JavaScript files that are not needed, are not necessary for the page to render. So I want you guys just to take note of, and I know this gets confusing the way I'm going back and forth with screen shares, but take note of this tab. Okay, so if I'm looking at the course page, what is needed to render above the fold on desktop? So like if I had somebody visit this page, what needs to load first? Well, I need my logo needs to come in quickly. The header navigation needs to come in, whatever font files may be associated with any text that's above the fold, and any image that's above the fold. Great examples of what is not needed to render this page. Okay, chat widget. Chat widget is not needed to make this page display. Cookie banner is not needed for this page display. Google Analytics is not needed for the page to display. And so we are going to look at now, I'm going to come over to separate tab, and we're going to go back to the WP Rocket settings for delaying JavaScript. Again, these were various JavaScript files that I know from having looked at previous tests. I know what doesn't need to be loading immediately. And actually, sorry, this is really backwards, the way that WP Rocket does this. So WP Rocket, the way that it has started working since version 3.8.8 and beyond, is that any JavaScript is going to be delayed by default. And I'll show you what delay means here shortly. But all the things that I've put in this list here are actually exclusions. These are the things I'm saying, hey, WP Rocket, leave these alone and don't actually do anything with these scripts, because I actually do want them to be delayed, but I want to have more control over how they're delayed. And so this is a case where you'd use something like the Flying Scripts plugin I mentioned earlier. That one's free. I'm in this case going to use Perf Matters. So I'm going to pull Perf Matters up in a separate tab. And those same scripts that you saw there, I'm going to switch over to Perf Matters. And I'm going to show you how we can go into some of their settings. There's a lot that can be looked at here. And you guys, I know this is a lot of content, but I'm trying to move quickly enough. I'm going to turn on Perf Matters setting for this. And I'm telling Perf Matters to delay. This is Google Tag Manager. So this is what I've got firing currently. Google Analytics, Hotjar. I think that's it. Chatra is the chat widget that you saw in the bottom right corner. That is not needed. Google Analytics, which is, again, it's fired by Google Tag Manager. So it's really not necessary to have both in there, but I just have it in there. Same thing with Hotjar. Delaying Tag Manager should take care of all of that. My cookie banner is done by compliance. So compliance is not needed to render the page, so it's being delayed. And convert box, which is like a pop-up kind of plugin. notice there's a setting here that says delay timeout. You can select anything from, no delay at all up to 10 seconds. I'm going to leave it on 6 is what I have right now. Some recommend making sure that that is set to, 7 to 10 seconds. But we're now going to watch what happens with this enabled. We're going to come back to, and I'm going to clear cache really quickly. I'm going to come back to the front page of the demo site here. Switching my screen share again. Just making life really fun for everybody today, right? Switching all the screens. All right, so we're on DevTools, and I'm going to, hang on, let's try this again. Crowdcast did not like how I tried to do that. Perf matters, share. And that is actually the wrong tab. Bear with me, folks. Sorry about that. Yeah, I want the front page. Okay. Now, so when I go back to my network tab, which, of course, I need to switch more. You don't need to see the front page this way. I need to show you guys DevTools. Okay. Sorry, we got there eventually. Okay, so if I clear out this page, if I now reload the page, what you're going to see is all the requests come in that normally come in, except for the 6 or the handful that I delayed, all right, until 6 seconds after timeout. So there's 49 requests right now. And just notice it's 50. And after a while, all of a sudden you see several other things come in, okay? I'm going to do that just one more time. And if you were to count, now I'm not interacting with the page. I'm not scrolling on the page, but if I were to scroll the page, it would immediately kick off those next pieces of JavaScript so that they would execute as soon as I started interacting with the page. And I could actually, I'm going to pull off a separate tab here so you guys can see this happen. I'm now, and you won't see this, but I'm going to clear it one more time. I'm going to refresh the page, and then I'm going to immediately start scrolling the page, and you'll actually see those JavaScript requests come in much faster. So the page reloaded. All right, I started scrolling, and then we immediately jumped up in total number of requests, right? If everybody can see that, that is effectively what JavaScript delay is. And so we're going to make sure that, so we've saved that on Perf Matters. We're going to rerun the waterfall test, and let me switch back to our Chrome. Or sorry, switch back to the GT metrics tab. And we can all see this again. All right, so total number of JavaScript requests that make it into the waterfall. There's 17 right now. All right, and if I retest this, what we should have is those scripts for things like Google Tag Manager, Google Analytics, the chat widget. All of those things are not going to show up in this test waterfall because they were told to not load whenever the page is first being displayed. And that's a big performance saver because we're saying, hey, let's not display anything. Let's not require any code to be executed until the page has finished rendering. And you see in this screenshot, it did catch the cookie pop-up and it did catch the chat widget, which means we may still have a cached version of the page that was seen just then. But if we go to the waterfall, let's just see, is it still 17? Yeah. So let me actually hit, I could have just totally disabled any caching until I was done with making any optimizations. But if we clear out the caching, and I'm also, just to speed this along, if you're ever running tests and you're not sure you're seeing the correct result after you've made some changes, you could have a cached version of your page being like retested in the testing center that you use, the location. And so I switched to Chicago just now. It was on Texas. So just switching to a different location sometimes is a way just to verify you're not seeing a cached version of that page that might be stored by the testing tool. And I promise, I know some of this is going fast, but I will go much quicker in just a moment to make it through some of these other slides. But did want to show some real world examples of some of this working. But this sitting around waiting for tests to rerun after we have made changes. There's a lot of this involved whenever testing before and after on performance.
We also have a few questions over on the question tab.
Okay.
If you're ready to answer some questions, a lot of cash questions.
Yeah, sure. And see, nothing in my example worked correctly that time, so I may still be dealing with some cache. So I'll just make that switch just one more time and rerun that, and then let's look at just some questions on that.
Yeah, for
Grant,
sure.
Tell me how much time we have to play with here, because I know I've already kept everybody really long.
We're going a little bit over, but
Yeah.
that's totally, that's okay. We can, I mean, if it's okay with you, and thank you everyone for so much for your patience with our troubleshooting and for sticking around. In terms of the giveaway, I'll send that over email. So we will be giving those away. So no worries about that. Do you have a couple of minutes for questions, John?
Yeah. So if we need to move along and knock out some questions, let's do it.
Yeah, let's go ahead. And a couple of people want to pick your brain. So what are your thoughts on Kinsta for WP hosting?
Yeah, so Kinsta's pretty much going to be your top end managed WordPress host. They are great. They're also expensive. But if money is not a limiting factor there, it can be a great fit for a lot of cases. It can get extraordinarily expensive if you have really heavy like WooCommerce or LMS workloads. And so just beware that costs can really increase exponentially if you have a lot of visitors, a lot of concurrent users in particular. Not such a big idea, not such a big deal if you only have a handful of people maybe trying to check out at the same time. But when you start dealing with a lot of simultaneous users on something like WooCommerce or an LMS, then your hosting needs, just because your resources are so much more, going to get really expensive on something like Kinsta. So there could be alternatives that you might want to use instead.
Do you suggest any alternatives, or just kind of like depending on case-by-case basis?
Yeah, sure. So I mean, if you want to use the word managed host, and I do definitely recommend managed hosts for a lot of folks, especially if you don't want to kind of have to get your hands dirty and learn some of the more technical things, which I'm still learning so much. But there's been a big shift. A lot of people have moved to start using Cloudways to kind of self-host in a sense. You kind of go through the Cloudways as the third party, and they kind of act as support. But you can actually create your own servers through things like DigitalOcean and Vultr, Linode, et cetera. So it can be more cost effective in some ways if you go with a more kind of self-hosted route, but it can require a little bit more technical know-how. So some of the cost savings do come with the requirement that you might have to get your hands dirty. And if you're really feeling squirrely, GridPane, I think, is the most cost effective server like management platform that you could go through. They don't upcharge you for any of your hardware. So if you pick DigitalOcean or Vultr, Linode, UpCloud, wherever you pick your infrastructure, they're not charging you on top of that. They are just a control panel, but it does require a lot more technical stuff and getting into the knowledge base and reading. I'm still learning so much. I'm just scratching the surface on some of this stuff.
Awesome, thanks. Any performance issue with WP Bakery or Elementor plugins?
So those are two that I've not had to spend much time with. Most of what I have worked on in the last 2 years or so has been predominantly Divi sites, Cadence, and I'll get an occasional generate press from someone else. But usually, like if someone's approached me with a site, a lot of them have been Divi, not a lot of Bakery. But again, similar to Divi, if you've got a lot of third-party extensions that are trying to plug into the theme and extend the functionality, it can get a little bit messier. I know that Elementor has some plugins that are good for improving the performance there. But again, it can just start getting a little bit more dicey, but no reason to believe that, you couldn't still have a plenty fast website by using them.
Awesome. And still on the Kinsta topic, how do you feel about Kinsta as compared to WP Engine?
WP Engine. Kinsta is just a step above. Hardware-wise, the actual server infrastructure is just a little bit better. Clock speeds are a bit faster for those that care about that or might find it relevant. They're just a bit more advanced. And like, so Flywheel, so I've still got some sites on Flywheel. Flywheel and WP Engine are, owned by the same, parent company, and very similar products, really similar offerings. It's just Flywheel is a little more catered to the freelancer agency that's trying to scale and everything. But the infrastructure is pretty similar. But I think between Flywheel and WP Engine, that maybe WP Engine might have just a little bit more available to it from a power standpoint. But Kinsta is going to be really, and again, for the price that you're paying, it kind of comes with the territory. It is just a touch more performance. So.
Gotcha. Awesome. Another question that we have is, what is the best tool to use to test your page speed? GTmetrix, Pingdom?
Let's see. So I don't think I made any slides about that specific stuff. Sorry. I was just throwing that up on the screen. But the best, it's a strange question, because if you want to get a good idea of like, well, how's my site doing with page speed insights, then you would want to either be running a page speed insights test, through Google's service, or you want to run Lighthouse in your Chrome browser to get an idea of page speed insights. If you are comfortable with Chrome's dev tools, just looking at your waterfall charts within the network tab in Chrome is a great way to see a waterfall. But I do think GTmetrix has a little bit easier to read waterfall. Webpagetest.org, I think it's .org, if not .com. Webpagetest, another great tool. Really cool one, and I'm sad to say that it's going away. Right now it's fastorslow.com. It's made by WordFence, and it's being sunset like within a month or so. It might be the end of this month, actually. But it lets you simultaneously test your site from like 14 different locations around the world. But that will be going away soon. So use it while you can.
All right, awesome. And okay, and I'm so sorry for cutting you short. It's just want to be respectful of your time and everyone else's time as well. In order for the rest of your planned content, could you give us kind of like a little high level, quick run through and wrap it up and bring it home, just so we can. Sure. Yeah, I don't want anyone to feel that we're cutting you short. I just want to be really respectful of everyone's time.
No, it's good. I talk a lot, and so it's really understandable. And I'm happy I can do a recording of finishing out the presentation and send that to everybody that might want to see the rest of it. So I'd be glad
that would be fantastic. Yeah, we could include that in the follow-up email and the resources. And in terms of our giveaways, I will reach out to the winners personally through email and connect you with John as well. And yeah, let's head out. Let's continue with a couple of more questions. Thank you everyone for your patience. I definitely crowdcast.
Yeah, there's I don't think, and there's other resources for any links or products mentioned in the deal. These are all in the slides as well. But I guess the last thing I'll mention maybe, for one of the giveaways, the EU Image Optimizer, I just think it's one of the best image optimization tools because it can convert images to WebP on the fly if the user's browser is compatible with WebP. It just gives you smaller image formats. There'll be much lighter image files than JPEGs or PNGs. It'll automatically scale your images, so automatically resize them to the best size for their container. And oh gosh, it can do so many other wonderful things. The lazy loader is great. It's got a filter for lazy loading so that you can automatically skip images that are above the fold and only lazy load things below the fold, because you don't want to lazy load things like your logo at the top of your site and maybe your hero image at the top of each page. So it's got a filter for that, so it can automatically skip it, which works well with Perf Matter's automatic preload. It's still in beta right now, but their preloading can actually preload the header logo and your hero image. So those two in tandem are really great for your images. But yeah, there's more where that came from. I can make a recording to wrap all this up. and kind of finish out the presentation.
Yes, yeah. Let's continue with some questions though, because a few of them are related to these resources. So one is, what do you like about EWW? So is it EWWW or is it ew? How do you say that?
So I actually interviewed Shane Bishop. He's the creator. And kind of asked him about the name, because I told him I would have checked this out sooner if I didn't, I saw the name previously and was like, it's called EW. Why would I check it out? But the company is called Everything World Wide Web, like everything WWW. So the acronym just comes out weird. He's got another product that's got just kind of a silly acronym too. He likes it.
Okay, all right. So what do you like about EWWW over Short Pixel?
Yeah, so for the reasons I already mentioned, I do love it. And then also it does have different levels of compression that you can use, similar to Short Pixel. I think my favorite difference between the two is it does not use, at least on the license that I have. I got a AppSumo, like unlimited license, unlimited bandwidth, basically. And so it doesn't operate on credits, at least if you're on the unlimited plan. So you can, if you wanted to optimize your local images that are actually on your server and not just the images that are coming from the CDN, if you choose to use that option, then you don't have to pay more like every time you want to say, create WebP versions of your images. And then if you want WebP served from the CDN, then you may pay for that as well in Short Pixel. So I just prefer to be able to pay for something maybe once and not have to pay for it again. And so that may not be the same case for everyone. If you didn't, get a deal like that. But I do think it's a better approach than using a credit-based system.
Awesome. Another question we have is, what is the easiest way to inline critical CSS?
Yeah, so if you're going to inline critical CSS, you can either get that into the header of your site using something like WP Rocket. It does let you generate critical CSS. Perf Matters does this as well. And combined with one of their newer features, which is remove unused CSS, it will actually put that CSS in a separate file. So rather than inlining it in the header, which can be great for performance, it actually puts it in a separate file so that it itself can be cached rather than having the CSS inlined in the HTML. And so that feature of Perf Matters, I think, is even more performant. But yeah, the WP Rocket and Perf Matters both let you do that. And I'm sure there's free plugins that can help you do it as well. There are critical CSS generators that you can use if you need to inject that CSS above certain pages, but things like tools like WP Rocket and Perf Matters make it just super easy. Flying Press does it as well.
Awesome. And can you share the coupon code for GoWP for our audience today who are buying the course?
Yeah, sure. So the code is just GoWP. It's all lowercase. It'll work if it's uppercase too, but just GoWP. 20% off right there.
Awesome. 20% off using promo code GoWP at checkout, I assume.
That's right. And if you want to take something for a spin before you spend any money, there's a free mini course. And I say mini, and it's long. The mini course is kind of long-winded like I am right now. There's a lot of content in the mini course. So check that out on the site as well. You will see that and can opt in and take that for a spin before you even consider checking out the course, the paid version.
Everything is incredibly valuable. So we appreciate it over here. So is there any reason you choose Perf Matters over Flying Scripts?
So Flying Scripts only does JavaScript delay. And for some use cases, that's the only thing you would ever need. The really great thing about the way that Flying Scripts and Perf Matters handle JavaScript delay, I like that it does. Both of them do give you the option to select the timeout duration. So from 0 to 10 seconds, if a user has not interacted with the page, whether that's click a button, scroll, that kind of thing, setting the timeout is nice. WP Rocket doesn't let you have control over the actual timeout. They just delay. I don't even know what the default is, honestly. But I like having control over that because sometimes you want to make it longer than not. But Perf Matters has a lot of other features in it beyond just the JavaScript delay. We didn't even get into one of my favorite things. It'll be in the recording, but the script manager. That's what lets you disable bits of JavaScript or CSS or entire plugins on a per page basis to get requests out of your waterfall that don't need to be there. So Perf Matters has a ton of reasons to use it too.
Awesome. That is awesome. And another question we have is, what is the difference between EWWW and short pixel? I think we mentioned this already, right? We just talked about this.
Yeah, we covered some of the differences.
Yeah, we just covered this, Ben Anderson, about, I want to say, a couple of minutes ago. Sorry, I was just reading on the fly. All right. So we have another question is, can a builder greatly impact the speed load of a site?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one of the lessons in the paid course, it may not be exactly as relevant now because I recorded the portion on Divi prior to that 4.10 update. But I compared, like, if you just had 3 different themes or builders installed. I compared Generate Press, which is a really lightweight theme. I compared Cadence, and then I compared Divi, just blank installs. Hey, if the theme is the only thing installed, how many requests does it make? And before Divi's update, it was several requests. I don't remember how many, honestly. I want to say it was in the teens. It might have been something like 18 or so requests. But it only goes up from there as you add sections to pages and add functionality and this and that. And so a page builder, just generally because of the extra bulk that can come along with it, is going to make a page a bit heavier. But thankfully, Divi now uses, they use like dynamic JavaScript and dynamic CSS. They're trying to only load the portions of modules that you have actually selected to use. But again, just some of the third-party plugins that integrate with Divi aren't quite on board with it yet. And so I've got a couple of Divi sites where I just have to turn off all of their performance settings for the theme and just do things a bit more manually through Perf Matters, WP Rocket, that kind of thing. But yeah, it absolutely makes a difference. Lighter weight themes, block builders specifically, are going to be more performant. No question asked.
Awesome. All right, so we still have a couple of more questions, but I was just thinking, why don't we just do the giveaway quickly? Since we're already
give people stuff.
We're already here. Yeah, let's give people stuff. Okay, so I have to share my screen. I think I'm going.
Oh,
I think I'm experienced. It's my turn. All right, let's see. Can you guys see my screen? Oh. Am I sharing?
I cannot see.
I think
I may need to like unshare.
Can you guys see it?
I see you now. Yes. See
okay, we are here. Oh, here we go. And this is for one of the lifetime. You guys can't hear that.
Go, Michael.
But,
that's noisy.
All right. No. So what? So we have a Michael. And oops, sorry about that. All right, I have to confirm who was the winner on that side. Oh, okay. So wait, this is I'm feeling your pain on the
screen share. So sorry.
This year screen sharing is intense. So this was Michael. Let's see, which Michael was this?
If you're Michael,
Michael from Pathfinder SEO, I believe. Yeah, Michael from Pathfinder SEO is the winner of one of the EWWW lifetime licenses, and I'll follow up with you and John over email. Okay, I will remove Michael's name and click again for another lifetime.
I see my name's on the wheel. I hope I win. Oh, it's so close.
Niels. I saw him in the chat. I know you're here, Niels. So I saw you in the chat. All right. You guys are seeing my screen well, right?
Yes.
Okay, fantastic. So Niels, second winner, and let's go for a third one. And sorry, neither John or Emily are available to
We're
win.
not eligible.
Not eligible, yes. Thank you. And Beth.
All right,
Beth. Yeah, Beth. Yeah, Beth, Niels, and Michael, congratulations. You guys just won each one a lifetime license for EWWW image optimizers. So auto-scaling WebP conversion on the fly, lazy loading, image and asset delivery by Bunny CDN, and unlimited bandwidth for life.
Yeah.
How about that, huh?
I'll get you guys configured on that too. I'll get with you to get optimal settings for your setup and everything.
Fantastic. And our very last one, this is the most special one, I believe, is 1 hour of coaching and done for you or with you site speed optimization with the very own John. And Ryan, you are on that list. Everyone who's here is on the list. So it's a big list. All right. Are you guys, y'all ready for the last one?
Bring the wheel.
Bring the wheel. 1, 2, 3, let's go. Anna. Congrats, Anna Gargioni. Awesome.
All right.
Yes, this is great. Yay, how exciting. See, we had to edit on a little bit of a lighter fun note.
That's right.
Okay. Congratulations to all of the winners. So exciting. Yes, Jason, so close, almost there. You got to stick around for the next one. And John, any parting words? Thank you so much for everything today. This was so valuable, and I'm looking forward for the long play, the director's cut of the webinar.
Yeah, so we'll do this. So right now, if you go to holygrailwp.com/GoWP, that is where you can get the slides and the checklist from today. The shirt does say clear your cache. And so you can get those resources. I will also, if you complete that form now, I will also make sure to follow up with you to get you the recording of, I could basically speed through the first half of what we did today and really hang on the back end of it, right? So that it's not nearly as long on the front end and we cover everything else I didn't get to.
So valuable. Everything was incredibly valuable. Well, thank you so much. Thank you everyone for your such awesome engagement and for all of your valuable questions and for sticking around. We really, really appreciate it. Don't forget to join the GoWP Digital Agency Owners community. John hangs out in there. I hang out in there. The rest, there's over 1,900 agency owners who would love to continue this discussion, and we encourage y'all to connect and ask him and everyone else questions there, anything that comes up. And yeah, thank y'all so much. Join the group, and also if you want to stay tuned for more webinars like this one, make sure you follow GoWP over here on Crowdcast so you can get those updates right in your inbox. We'll be following up on the extended resources and the extended version of the webinar and everyone who won as well. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone. We'll see you around. Thank you so much, John. Have a great rest of your week and a great rest of your day.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.